So good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I have the great pleasure to introduce our guest speaker this evening. His name is Brett Lewis. Brett is the owner and creator of his own YouTube channel called Roaming the Outback. It is an Australian travel blog. Brett tells me that he has also always had a desire to get away from the big smoke and explore the great wilderness area that Australia has to offer. So Brett tours Australia, living in his Land Rover Defender. He documents on film his travels, then he edits the footage, adds voiceovers and music, and then uploads the clip to YouTube. Now he does all this on the road from inside his Defender 110, which is pretty remarkable. So I've said enough. Please make welcome our guest speaker for this evening, Brett Lewis.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me tonight. It's been a beautiful little gift for me to come up here and meet some fellow four-wheel drivers and adventurers. So you've heard a bit of an introduction, just to quickly find out who has actually seen some of my videos. Okay, cool. Awesome. Okay, I'll just play a quick video for those who haven't, just a little intro from my YouTube channel.
G'day, I'm Brett, and this is Roaming the Outback, your source for Australian touring inspiration. Join me on my travels as I explore epic outback destinations, national parks, wondrous wildlife, bushwalks, and 4x4 tracks in a slow, laid-back travelling style. How-to videos, gear reviews, and Land Rover Defender modifications are also covered. I think it's a shame most people wait until retirement to begin living their dream of travel, their someday in the future. So I'm not waiting it out 30 years with the hope I'm still physically or financially able. I'm living my some days today. So whether you're an Aussie with a dream to complete the big lap, a foreigner wanting a taste of outback adventure, or an armchair warrior, you'll find something here to inspire, educate, or entertain you. Click subscribe now to join us, or join me on one of my future tag-along tours, Roaming the Outback.
Okay, so you've seen there a bit of what I do when I get up to. I've been a solo traveller making films on YouTube for about 13 years now. It started back in 2008. I'd been wanting to be a park ranger for about 3 or 4 years when I did my degree, and I tried for about 2.5 years to get that dream job, and I was at the point of giving up when I happened to I got that feeling inside that I should probably buy a four-wheel drive, because this probably isn't going to happen if I'm going to go somewhere remote. And I had a Mini, a 1965 Morris Mini, which is not exactly an outback driving car. So I bought this beautiful 1993 model Defender. It's virtually stock standard, just with the bull bar, snorkel, and all-terrain tyres. 3 weeks later, I got a call offering me a dream job on Cape York as a park ranger for 4 months as a temporary position. Of course, naturally, I said yes. I had the car now, which I'd had for 3 weeks, and I instantly started going to TJM, ARB, and kitting it out to figure out what it was I needed to go to Cape York, because this is like wild country. I've heard of it, I've seen it on TV back in the early days of Frank Horrocks' The World Around Us, and Malcolm Douglas doing his wild adventures, and the bush tucker man, Les Hiddens. So that's what I had in my mind, this wilderness country, which sort of sparked that passion, as well as my family's yearly camping trips. So I got everything set up. Off I drive from Brisbane to Cairns, and not long after that, I hit Lakeland. And that point in time in 2006, that was basically where the bitumen ended and the corrugations and gravel began. So off I go, the last bit, and I had to learn then and there how to four-wheel drive in a car. I'd owned it for 6 weeks with 0 four-wheel driving experience on Cape York. So I learned very quick. I had a few close incidents where I nearly lost control, trying to drive too fast, just inexperienced. But I survived. I had a wonderful 2.5 year experience of, we'll still look back at some of the best experiences of my life, with wild crocodiles and pigs and cattle, meeting some of the local Aborigines, working with them. And then, the first trip, outside of work, we drove the land cruisers there. I decided to do a 3-week solo trip from Cairns to the Tip alone. Now, as I said, I've seen so many people talk to me on my forums about, we're going to do the Cape and been preparing for a year, and I've still got to do more modifications on my car. And I'm thinking, you really don't need it anymore. The Cape's not like it was 30 years ago. It's very easy to get to the tip of Cape York. You can do it in, a 2-wheel drive car towards the end of the year. The roads are so good and graded. But I did that trip, and that was that first taste of real adventure, heading out on my own. Now, up until that point, I'd been fairly bulletproof, I'd say. I was young, I still didn't know enough. I'd never been bogged in my Defender. I thought, I'm invincible. It was in Cape Melville. I'd just gone out there for 3 or 4 days, beautiful spot. On the way back, there was this deep water crossing, I'd just been filming crocodiles, like freshwater crocodiles, swimming around back and forth. I thought, I'm going to drive straight through the middle rather than take the detour on the side, which is a bit shallower. So I drive in, about halfway through, I am water slapping at the bottom of the windscreen. Everything's pouring in, my fridge is going under because I had it in the footwell. And I'm like, oh my God, what do I do? Do I keep driving forward? Do I stop and reverse? Is water going to go up the muffler and stall the engine? But I put my foot down, kept going, got 3/4 through, and then it just stopped dead, bogged, tried for 5 minutes, backwards and forwards to move, but it was just black bottomless mush of leaf litter and detritus. So in the end, after that, I realised I had to jump out into this black, murky, sort of up here type water filled with freshwater crocodiles, and the possibility of a saltwater croc because it was well within the territory. So I had a hand winch, winched myself for about 15 minutes and got myself 2 metres, which was enough to get me to drive out. So it was a bit of a reality check when I'm in a remote place on my own. You don't take stupid risks and endanger yourself or the car just for the hell of it. So that was a good learning lesson for me. After I left Cape York, went back home to Brisbane, continued on, got a job in council, working in the natural areas team down there, but something inside of me knew that I had to go back onto the road and live that dream of travel. Now, I was always hoping to meet someone, because I never really wanted to do it alone. I was hoping, waiting, but that person never came, so my 20s disappeared and I never did that travel. Heading into my 30s, I realised I didn't want to lose these as well, so I started to I got into personal development, and I bought Tony Robbins' Personal Power 2 program. In there he talks about setting goals and picking a date to make it happen and then taking action right away. So from listening to that program, I got the idea that I should just do it. I should just stop saying, maybe next year, because it's never going to happen. It takes time to prepare and plan. So I picked a date 2 years in advance, and pretty much within a week or 2 weeks, I began stripping this car down to pretty much the bare minimum. Everything inside had been stripped. Any unnecessary stuff and wiring ripped out, and I began converting it into a long-term remote area touring vehicle that I could live comfortably in for 1 year. Now, a good 2 years of work, and it wasn't finished in the end. I pushed it out forward 1 more year, and then finally in February 2015, I was ready to set off on my dream trip around Australia, the big lap. So that ended up me heading downwards. I didn't have too much planned. I put all the pins in the map where I wanted to go, and just let everything else unfold naturally. Just decided in February I was going to head south, which was sort of opposite to what most people do, because I'm heading into winter, and it was pretty cold down that way. Being a Queensland boy my whole life, I'd never experienced that kind of cold. But in the end, it was great because I was the only one in all the national parks. I had the best camping spots to myself, and I got to experience that isolation and that sort of me time that I really needed. So going down all the way to the coast, down through Victoria, seeing Wilson's Promontory, back round, hitting as far west as Ceduna and the Gooks Track, working my way all the way back up north through the Sturt Highway into Northern Territory, straight back across around, and ended up being 10 months. By about 9 months, I'd never felt so alive in my life, and I haven't actually felt that way since. I was completely alive, my mind was completely awake, I had so many ideas. It's like spirit flowing through me of all these entrepreneurial things I could be doing to earn income. It's like, wow, I just feel so alive, I want to get back and start it. But then I went back to my job, and within 2 or 3 months I was dead inside, and just thinking, when's the next trip? When can I get away again? So I started thinking though, well, maybe I should settle down. But I did the math, like thinking, okay, I can save money, I can buy a house and all that. But with what I was earning, I calculated a 30-year, $300,000 loan, it would cost about $400 a week. I was only getting paid $800, so I'm thinking $400 a week, every week for 30 years is what I have to live off. I'm thinking that's slavery, I can't see myself doing that and giving up the best years of my life when I'm still young and fit and capable of climbing mountains or changing a tyre. So I put that out of my mind and just started putting money away for my next trip and starting to plan phase 2 of my Defender build, which is gradually adding more and more things to it for reliability and comfort. Eventually, in probably mid-2018, I holed out as long as I could, and I got my long service leave up, so I finally said, yep, I'm hitting the road, and headed straight out into Outback Queensland to check out some of those parks like Expedition, Mariala, Hellhole, Colgoa floodplains, and Idalia. Is there anyone who's sort of seen any of those parks here? A few. They are beautiful. Like, you don't hear much about them because they're way out there, and everyone's all about Fraser and Moreton and the coastal stuff, but some of these parks, there's just so few people there that you can get away from it all and just enjoy solitude. And even though we have had a few years sort of in drought, there's still some of that water's been flowing out west there, and the wildlife's picking up again, the bird life, it's just beautiful. So I was back on the road. Of course, I have to fund myself, so I save a lot of money. I save as much as I can. I'm pretty frugal with my money. And then ended up working a 5-month job as a park ranger again, just to get a few dollars up, and set up going again in 2019, where I did Currawinga and New South Wales in Sturt. And then finally got the chance to get my pop-top conversion done, which was a dream I'd had since 2015, going to Sydney and seeing a pop-top in real life and thinking, wow, this is awesome, this is a home on wheels. I can live in this instead of buying a big giant house which traps me, but this is freedom on wheels. So at this point, I'm aiming for 2022 for my next trip, but again, I'm trying to save at the moment and just see what's happening with the world situation and borders and such. So which brings me to the idea of waiting for retirement, because I know when I travel, I see a lot of grey nomads, and a lot of people talk to me, like they invite me out for dinner around the camp, and they say they wish they hadn't have waited so long, wish they hadn't have waited to save so much money. Because many now are just getting too old, they can't do the walks, they can only walk up to the boardwalk, take a few photos. They've missed out on so many great years. I guess, you get caught up in family and then taking care of the grandkids, paying all the bills and having all those nice things that you think you want because everyone else has them, like the nice cars and the fully kitted out house with fancy furniture. Some sort of sad statistics here is the average male lifespan in Australia is 81 years and the average female 85 years. So if you get a job at 21, say you did a degree, you have 46 years of working until you get to retire at 67, which is my retirement age now. I'm sure by the time in 30 years I'll probably push that out to 70. But you get 14 years of retirement living for men and 18 years for female after 46 years of the best years of your life spent working. So to me, it's not the best investment, wasting all those years when there's so much to seek and do when you still can. Plus the issue, when I'm 67, in 2050, the estimated world population will be 9.8 billion people. So that's 2 billion people more than there is now. And you think about how congested some of the roads are, how how much open sprawl there are in the cities. And when you go camping, there's like, you go to a popular spot, it's booked out and there's people everywhere. Where is another 2 billion people going to go to get away from it all? They're going to want to hit to these parks, these remoter places. It's just going to be mayhem. So where can you go to escape? So that's, again, another reason why I've been sort of pushing to spend the money now, get it out of my way, get it out of my system, and enjoy my life while I can. And Australia is shrinking. From my travels, like I said earlier, I grew up with Malcolm Douglas and the Bush Tucker Man, and in those days, the 80s and 90s, those outback parks were still very remote. It was very difficult to get to some of these places. Cape York was a massive adventure where you needed to take fuel with trailers and really plan it out, but now it's all so easy. There's bitumen circumnavigating most of Australia. I did a trip out to Cameron Corner in 2019, and I thought, oh, this is way out back Queensland, this is going to be really hard to get to, but it was 3 days on bitumen most of the way, and then a short, maybe 100 k's or something on a fairly well gravel braided track. And I get there, I'm like, wow, this isn't an adventure as much as I thought in my mind. I thought, yeah, this is way out, but we're shrinking. Australia's getting smaller and smaller. The technology in our cars is getting better and better reliability. And I foresee a time in the future where AI technologies and driverless cars will get to the point where they have driverless four-wheel drives that can scan the terrain and automatically chart a course through, and technology's there already for doing that, so I'd say. So it's only a matter of time before anyone with virtually no four-wheel drive experience can be in these places and enjoying them. In my mind, Western Australia is the last frontier, the last place. It's probably remote enough and large enough to really withstand some of the pressures of the onslaught of people going away to enjoy, as we've all seen from this club and in all the four drives around we see in town. It's just so easy to get a truck and head out now. And saying that though, you don't need all the kit, obviously. I've spent 14 years working on this car. It's the only four-wheel drive I've ever owned. So I've had time to build it up exactly how I want and had the time to invest in it because I see it as a lifetime car, Land Rover for life. I'll keep it till it burns down or gets stolen or something happens that I can't replace. So you don't need all the kit, just get out there. Cape York's so easy these days. Like I said, people say they spend 1 or 2 years preparing, and I think don't waste your time preparing, just go, do it. Just take that 2 or 3 weeks off work, whatever you can get, and just do it. You don't need very much these days. And plus you'll get the experience and the adventure, and you can decide from there what your style of travel is. As I'm getting older now, hitting 37 currently, heading towards 40, I kind of have more and more desire for comfort compared to what I had previously, where the swag was good enough. Breaking news, how I went from wealthy to broke in 14 years and how you can too. Australian adventurer reveals his wealth scarcity system. So yeah, the old Land Rover. So I have spent a fair bit of money on it in that time. I'd estimate around $60,000 in the last 14 years of ownership to basically build it up into something that I can rely on, that's comfortable, and that I know virtually every nut and bolt and wire. So that if it does break down, which it does on occasion, I can fix it, which if you've seen some of my videos from the last ones I put out, showing all the ones I recorded of things I've had to fix on the side of the track to keep going. So for those interested, let's see now. I've set it up for about long range travel, so I have 2 fuel tanks, 185 litres. That gets me about a 1,400 kilometre safe travel range. I've got about 71 litres of water on board for about 2 weeks or so of water, plus I carry a water filter so I can filter from any creeks or dams. I've got a fully rebuilt engine and gearbox, transfer case, and the front and rear diffs having upgraded to Detroit True Track limited slip diffs, which is wonderful in sand. It just flies through, no problems. I've got the pop-top camper conversion, which was done in 2019, so that's finally nice and comfortable. A double bed upstairs, and let's see, and I have a 12-volt travel buddy oven, so it's really nice to have that. If you haven't bought one, oh, it's life-changing to have an oven on the road and bake your own damper, really easy. Plus a fridge. So I'm pretty self-sufficient. I try and just do my own cooking and just, live as cheaply as I can so I can extend that cash I have saved for as long as I can travel. Which works out about, last time I did the calculations, $52 a day for me to travel, or around $1,600 a month. But I can get that down a little cheaper when I just stay like 2 weeks in a park, like I typically do now to produce the amount of film I have to do. It's very slow travel because I don't like to rush. There's nowhere in Australia yet that I've been that I felt like I have to go back to, because I only stay as long as I feel like I'm happy, and then I'll move on to the next place. But I don't need to go back and revisit places. I'm never in a rush. Like, I would have liked to have done more in 2019. Been aiming for Simpson Desert for 3 times, 3 trips around Australia. I still haven't made it there, but maybe the 4th trip I'll get there. So I'll open it up to any questions if you like about my travels, my filmmaking, whatever's on your mind.
What's the most parts that you change over? Which part of your car do you change over the most?
Which part do I change in my car the most? The oil. I like to do like preventative maintenance, so I change my battery like every 3 years. I change the water pump maybe every 3 or 4 years. Tyres, obviously, when they start getting a bit too risky to get things safe on like Outback tracks. Just those things. I spend the money now so that they don't have to fix it on the side of the road later.
What brand of tyre have you found to get the best run out of?
I've been using the Goodyear Duratrax the last, 3 trips around Australia I've done. That's just because I wanted something not all-terrain, but a bit more aggressive, but not mud tyre, because for me, I hate mud, and the dangers of trying to use a mud tyre on bitumen and in the wet, I sort of preferred something with more traction and safety. So I went the Duratrax, and I've been very happy. No punctures and 30 or 40,000 k's of solo travel around Australia.
What's the longest period you stay between getting food and your next stop to get food?
The longest stretch between resupply is probably about 2 weeks. So I think in Carolina, when I did 12 days of filming, I think pretty sure I stayed the whole 12 days in the park. So my food's all very simple. I've got the fridge, but I've also got a lot of tinned food, pastas, noodles, anything that will survive long time, like even tinned minced stuff. Like it actually tastes pretty good once you've been in the bush for a couple of weeks. It's like, wow, this tastes delicious. Yes.
How long should you allow for to go to Cape York?
Well, depending on how fast you really want to travel. I slowly. Well, I did my trip in 3 weeks. From Cairns to the tip was 3 weeks, and that was for me very lazy, casual. I got to enjoy every park I'm on the way. The Daintree, Lakefield, Cape Melville, a bit of Mukankanju, around Cohen, Heathlands, and then a bit of seeing Seisha and Bamako. So 3 weeks is really good, but if you're a bit shorter on time, then you might need to put it back to 2 weeks. Well, three weeks would be good then, I found. But obviously, if you've got like filming or photography to do, it might take a bit longer. But you don't need too much. When I was there in 2006 to 8, it just seemed so easy compared to what I had in my mind. And this is 10 more years or 12 more years on, and I hear stories of other travellers saying, oh yeah, there's more bitumen out all the way to Laura. The bitumen's going this bit further. The aim is to get to Weeper, I think. And like I said, there were 2-wheel drive cars going all the way to tip of Cape York when I was there. I'm thinking, what? This is insane. This is Cape York. Not anymore. Those days are gone. So do it while you can.
What brand of fridge do you use and how long have you had that?
I've had an Engel. I think I bought it in 2013 or 14, but it ended up fading twice on my last trip in the space of 10 days, which meant driving all the way back out, like a few hundred k's to the nearest service centre and getting first the power supply replaced and then going back out and getting the cooling system replaced. So I was very disappointed in that for something which is meant to be a legend of reliability. But Engel did come on board and help me out and pay a bit of money towards replacement parts. So I probably wouldn't buy an Engel again because I just want that reliability. So I've heard of a few other brands which are better, which are made in Australia, which I'll probably pursue in the future.
What brand?
A subscriber told me about, and I looked them up recently. The same ones the Australian Army uses in their tanks.
National Land?
No, there's another little mob.
So they're not made in Australia.
No. I have to look it up and I'll put it on my Facebook or something so you can see.
We'll see.
But yeah, the Australian Army uses them and the UN uses them to transport. Trailblazer, maybe?
Trailblazer. That's what
Australia made, little place somewhere on the coast somewhere.
Trailblazer.
Okay, must be Trailblazer. Try that might have a.
Yeah, they do it very.
Yeah.
Any situations you ever got in that you didn't think you'd get out of?
Situations I got in that I didn't think I'd get out of. Rather than that hand winching on the Cape York, I was actually a video of that, one of my first videos. You can see me hand winching. The look of terror on my face each time I wade back into that water. It's like I just eventually punched crocodiles that would come at me. But generally, all the breakdowns I've had when I'm travelling, I generally know what to do. I figure it out, and I think I've got all the time in the world, so I just sit there until it's fixed. Very patient. And I haven't been bogged yet anywhere around Australia, as far as like the 3 trips around Australia. So I'm still waiting for that day where I get horror involved and may have to call in help, which probably costs a lot of money to bring in someone in some of these outback parks.
What camera gear do you use?
Camera gear?
For your YouTube channel?
All my camera gear is just basic consumer. I'm shooting on Nikon cameras, a D5500, D3300. I have a 17-55mm f2.8, which is my primary shooting lens now, and then I think it's 200 to 500, which is my wildlife lens, which turns into like a 350 by 750 or something on a crop sensor. So it's really good for long distance filming. Mavic Air drone, and then a couple of GoPros, and that's all I need. And everything then comes down to skill and just getting enough footage to edit up something quite professional.
I can say something. You got a drone, eh?
Yes,
The drone.
it does. Did you?
Yeah.
Mavic Air.
Mavic Air.
Did everyone hear that?
So, Brett,
Clock's
with your,
speed looking to get.
with your editing that you have to do, is that something that you had to teach yourself, or something that YouTube taught you, or?
About my video editing, I'm all self-taught in video editing. There wasn't YouTube when I started making videos, and I even discovered it on Cape York, and I was like, oh guys, talking to my friends back home in Brisbane, have you heard this YouTube thing? Yeah dude, it's been around for 2 years. Oh, okay. But to me, when I just go on Cape York, out of contact with what's going on in the world, the self-taught, got some video editing programs and started teaching myself. In most of my filmmaking also just teaching myself, and since then I've invested in some training books and courses, and you'll see a sudden shift in my quality going a bit higher. So if you're interested in making your own films or whatever, just start, grab a camera, get some cheap software off the internet, and just make a record of your travels. I've had people talk about, some of my travels as being like the future documentaries, like 30 years time, people will look at my videos like they did Malcolm Douglas and thinking, oh, this is a snapshot of how wild Australia was in 2020. Because younger generations won't know that same joy of just being in the middle of nowhere and not seeing anyone for a whole week. It'd probably be gone.
Do you think you'll ever get to the point where you'll be able to fund your travels by your travels?
I'm hopeful, but when I research other YouTubers and how they're sort of struggling, and people with like 1 or 2 million subscribers, and it's hard to get that level of funding when there's so much content today. It's all free, and people don't want to pay anymore. It's just a free society, so you can't compete against big media doing all the sponsorship sort of thing they do.
Heap of product placement, that's what
Needs a product placement. I need more Land Rover stickers on my car. Unfortunately, with owning a Land Rover, I'm kind of out of that market. It's all about Toyotas and Isuzus and Mitsubishis or whatever they do. So there's not many people willing to sponsor an obsolete car that's based on ancient technology, which is yeah. Am I happy with the Mulgo top? Yeah, absolutely love it. I've had no issues with it at all. When I was in our Wellford, a storm come through there and it was pouring down rain and nothing got in. But I did find sometimes it can be a bit hard for me to lift. Especially when I'm like sitting around in the bush for like weeks and weeks just reading books. I don't do any physical activity. I have found myself getting weaker and weaker. So I try and lift to something and say, oh, wow, I should start working out again. But that can be changed with more powerful struts and stuff like that to help give that extra push up. So yeah, if you do have upper strength issues, you might need to talk to Daniel at Expedition Centre. He can put some sort of machine in that helps lift the first part up. Yeah, oh, get stronger, yeah.
You've got a 270 back when you're fording as well, or
Say again?
what sort of fording do you use?
I just use tarps. It's got some tarps modified with rail sail track. There's some sail track on the side, lengthways on both sides, so I can just slip that in either side or at the back. And it's like, it cost me like 60 or 70 bucks for a canvas tarp. And when I'm not travelling, I just not carry the tarp, so I'm not carrying loads of expensive awnings off the side and all that extra drag and weight. I just kept it simple as I could. Only downside of that is I obviously can't put it up in places where like hard concrete. I need to put the poles and the pegs out. But yeah, I tried to just keep it as cheap as I could. Yes?
So why did you choose a Land Rover?
Why did I choose a Land Rover? It again dates back to my early childhood and seeing the Bush Tucker Man on ABC travel around Australia in the 20s. And I think that image sort of lodged in my mind up until I never really thought much about buying one until I started looking around for a four-wheel drive and Defender, that looks really cool. And watching Bush Tucker Man, like, yeah. So before then I didn't know anything about them or the kind of mechanical issues I'd have or the reliability issues because that was still sort of early days. It wasn't the YouTube. Bought it in June 2006 was when I purchased this for $13,000. Completely clueless. I had no idea where the gearbox was and which one was the transfer case, and I was clawing around underneath with the manual. Like, where's what now? I was like, clueless, but I've learned since then. That's the only reason, really. There's nothing else when I look at cars that really appeals to me. This has character. I can dent it, I can scratch it, and it tells a story. I don't need to replace the panel. I can walk around my car, so I did that doing this, or I did that replacing that. It's good. In my mind, it was just a rugged vehicle that was simplistic. That's just what I prefer. Like, I got a 200 TDI. It's pre-computerized. Everything's just simple switches and wires. So I know that, as you've seen in some of my videos, I can pull it apart and I can probably figure out what's wrong and get it going.
The best car.
They're the best car as far as I'm concerned. As much people pay me out on YouTube but that's my dream. It's my life. This is my dream. That's what I spent, lots of money and time building up because that was the image I had in my mind, being just like Bush Tucker Man, getting around.
I reckon the industry's getting a bit out of control with the amount of gadgets and things and stuff that you don't need.
The industry. No, power's one. The industry, I think, is going a bit too far. It's like you're constantly being marketed to and saying what you need to have and you can't go bush without. But like I said, your stock standard Land Rover did Cape York. I lived up there for 2.5 years. And I had virtually no problems. A few little mechanical issues when I first got up there because, it was an old car that had been used by construction people to tow trailers, so a few things were worn out. But yeah, there's too much technology, too much dependency on high-tech 12-volt electrical doobie whackers. There's no need for a lot of it. So save your money when you go to these four-wheel drive shows and just invest that money more in more travel and more experiences. You'll find places along the road, some of these more touristy places, skydiving, whatever you want to do. Spend it on that instead rather than another gizmo that's just going to sit on a truck. Like if you watch my videos, you see mostly pretty simple. I only just bought an LED light bar for Christmas as a present to myself because I thought it might be time to upgrade to the 21st century rather than IPF lights on the front. So I've still got to install that. But yeah, there's just too much stuff coming out. So much cheap stuff in China that might not be the best either.
You reckon a 93 Land Rover would go against a 93 Land Cruiser 80 series?
I don't know. Find one.
We did that.
Take one out.
Didn't you see the thing? We did that trip on there last year. Remember?
Yeah. Who won it? I can't
I
remember.
think it was me. Because you scratched your paint.
Yeah, that's a non-question. That's just very rhetorical.
It seems more like, again, it's the basic car's a basic car. It comes down to the driver, who's behind the wheel and their experience and what they're able to do with it. Because I'm very cautious. I'm not particularly adventurous. I'm not hardcore. I don't endanger my vehicle myself. I don't have a lot of money to blow on repairing an old Land Rover, every weekend from doing crazy tracks. If there's a chicken track, I take the chicken track. That means I can do more travel without having broken down. So that's my philosophy. I don't have anything to prove. My masculinity isn't outside of myself, it's within. So I don't have to try and do that big hill and prove it out for I am. It's just, it's seeing as much as I can while I still have the physical ability and time on my side. I actually recently bought a post I saw on a Facebook ad about my life in weeks. So it shows 100 years and it shows 52 dots for each year. And you fill in, pre-fill in your age and each dot for each week. I'm looking at my life and thinking, I've nearly lived half of my life if I only lived to 81 years. I feel I haven't lived enough. I lived a very sheltered, fearful life for most of my 20s. I was terrified of going out to some of these places, like just going to Morton Island camping. It's like, But in that time, I've done the work. I've learned to lose some of that fear and start to really take life, make every week valuable as much as I can. So that's why I don't waste too much money on meaningless parties or drinking. I gave up alcohol 10 years ago. I just want to invest as much money as I can into really living life. Each week I'm filling in this little dot and I'm like, that's another week. What have I achieved? I got to do more. So that's why I'm thinking, 2022, try fit in a few more gaps, and then see what happens. If I find a partner, then I can work on building a family and a house and settling down for a while.
So that means you're single?
Yes. So,
Yeah, train up,
as a single male, it is very easy for me just to do that, and I can disappear when I just decide. So I don't have any commitments yet. I can just up and go, and I've got a car now that is a home on wheels, so there's nothing really stopping me.
Any other questions? Excellent. Excellent talk. Thanks, Brett.
Great,
Really
great,
appreciate it.
G'day. I hope you've enjoyed this film. If you'd like to assist in the creation of more videos without being committed to a monthly Patreon subscription or spending any additional money, click on this link, How You Can Help, for several ways you can contribute to my productions. Thanks.